So we're heading back to school. Of course, you know that ZLA is doing 100% virtual, but our school friends across the country and here in our state are also doing 50-50, where they're in school and out of school. So what are some of the things you think teachers should be thinking about as far as teaching morally?
Well, there's one thing that I have been thinking about and worried about that I'm not seeing anyone else talk about yet. Either I'm in Canada, so either in Canada or in the United States, and that is the potential for students to feel excluded or
Mm,
marginalized due
yeah,
to the pandemic related realities and procedures. So
right.
pre-COVID, teachers had all kinds of strategies for fostering inclusion.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm just not sure how those are all going to work now with physical distancing, with online classes, with some classes being on, having students who are on site and some who are at home still. You know,
right.
I have a cousin who lives in New York and she has cystic fibrosis. Her
Mm,
kids will not be going back to school until the family can get vaccinated. That's a long time. And I'm thinking, like, how will teachers still make sure that those kids are feel like they're part of something? Because we
right,
know that a sense of belonging and being able to meaningfully contribute are important for kids to thrive academically and in all other ways.
right. Hmm. That is quite the challenge that we're all looking at right now. And that and mixed with the fact that we are just so unsure as far as the territory. A lot of us were not ready for what we're facing. So I think yeah, that's a big thing to think about and keep on the mind. But in the classrooms, we use classroom communities, something we call here at ZLA classroom culture. Um, and when creating those communities, when I think about virtual learning, it makes me wonder how can we keep those same morals and values and the teaching thereof while doing it online? Is that a realistic expectation for us? That's the big question. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, I think communities is a good place to start. I think so that's a common metaphor for the type of learning environment that's desirable,
Hmm.
because it's characterized by belonging and connection, shared purpose, common goals, mutually supportive and caring relationships among all the students and also with the teacher,
Right,
collaboration, cooperation, respect, trust, fairness, helpfulness, kindness, and taking responsibility for others. So those values are really relevant to make kids feel included, and also they are educative as well. They help,
right,
they provide moral messages and opportunities for students to practice moral behavior. So perhaps community is even more important now than it's ever been.
hmm,
Um, and so sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to frame this as a
hmm,
context for inclusiveness and for moral education.
hmm.
But I'm not sure that how it would work now. You know what the strategies might be.
Right. And then the question is, how do we ensure inclusion? And does that still apply at this point? You know?
Yeah. So, well, thinking about some of Terry's strategies because she's so instructive for all of us,
Hmm.
and wondering how you would adapt those online, or in a mixed kind of classroom where some kids are joining online and some kids are there. So she really focused on the relationships between all the students and between herself and each individual student.
Hmm.
And she did this by providing lots of opportunities for the students to work and interact with everyone else in the class. So there were something like 9 different seating arrangements,
Right.
many working groups, many different partnerships. And by the end of the year, everyone had worked with everyone else at least once, probably
Mhm.
several times.
Right.
And with each student, she really built her own relationship with each student on being really accessible in every way, physically, intellectually, psychologically, socially, spiritually, emotionally,
Mhm.
every way. She was just really open and available to the students when they needed to chat with her, and they often initiated chats with her, and she regularly initiated those chats with them So everyone did really get to know everybody else in the classroom, get to know her, and she really got to know them. The
Hmm.
second main strategy, and then we can talk about how this might work online, is eh, she had made sure that everyone had a meaningful contribution to make to their classroom life. So she didn't
Hmm.
have a duty wheel. She didn't have a system
Right.
of assigning duties because she felt that she wanted everyone, and these are her words, to be helpful in a more natural way, to just take responsibility for each other and for what needed to be done. And this translated into the students applying their own different abilities and doing things that they like to do. So there was Connor, who was great at math, and his job was to go around and help all the other students with their math and correct their work. And Pia
Hmm.
did the same for illustrations and artwork because she was a terrific artist. And Kathy, socially mature and aware, and was often called on for conflict resolution.
Hmm.
Paige became Terry's scribe. She updated the board every morning and every afternoon. And Sammy liked to clean and organize, so she helped the students with their desks and their lockers. And Terry just made sure that everyone had something to do and was validated for it. So if someone hadn't done anything in a couple of days, she would say, hey, can you run this over to the office? Or do you mind
Hmm.
going down the hall and picking up the laptop trolley? So they were very effective strategies for
Hmm.
creating an inclusive class community when everyone was on site and in the class. I'll throw this back to you. How doable do you think this is if you've got kids learning from home or half the kids learning from home? Can they be adapted somehow, or do you think we need other different strategies?
I was thinking one of the first things that you said, you used one of my favorite words, initiate. She initiated the process. And I just think we are so caught up. First of all, we have to accept the fact that we are all very anxious right now. And anxiety causes us not to think clearly. And I'm speaking from a teacher approach. So being mindful that you really want to include them and initiate the conversation, initiate the chats, and include them. You can do some things online. Like one teacher this morning suggested that she's going to start all of her Zoom classes with music, and they're going to make a 5-minute music video every morning. Now, given they're all freshmen, but these freshmen, they love it because they're already TikToking. So if we can start with that, what a great way to include someone. And guess what, Dr. Rosenberg? Every day at the end of class, they get to vote on someone to be the DJ for the next day. What an incredible way to create a new classroom culture virtually. And
So
I
fun.
just think it's awesome that we think outside of the box. Even though right now the box is kind of scary, you want to make sure that you're still being creative and finding an avenue to keep our students, our future, engaged. So that's just one way. But it is possible. We have to take teaching that seems to be very narrow-minded at this point from those who are speaking on education, and remember that it is very complex and sophisticated. And at the same time, we have to be very creative. So you have to think outside the box. In fact, let's all agree to just take the box, burn it, and throw it away and never look at it again. There is no box anymore. We have a new normal, and we have to figure out a way to make sure every child feels validated, as you said, and knows how important they are. And then we have to initiate that whole process, because you also have students, as you were talking, I was thinking about the quiet students that I would teach who never really engaged with their peers and never really talked. Now you're online in a virtual class and you're looking at all these, maybe some classes have 35 students. I'm afraid to speak because although we're not in person, y'all still may think I'm dumb, for lack of a better word. So finding ways to give that quiet student a voice is just as important as well. And it's something that can last all month long, all school year long. Just find a practice like that teacher did,
Mhm.
that makes every student feel their worth and their value. I think that's really important. So it can be done. We just have to be really creative. And I'm sorry, that was really lengthy,
Oh,
but
no,
I
no.
just wanted our professors to know that it's still possible to do it. We just really have to be colorful and creative in that process of doing it. So
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking too that I'm assuming that there will still be group work and partner work online. And
Hmm.
so to be intentional about how that can uh, create relationships or nurture relationships among the students and ensure that no one gets marginalized. I guess what underlies it all is the same. It's teachers being hyper aware of the moral dimensions of
Yeah.
everything that they're doing to, caring for the kids. And so I think that would still work. The interesting thing about the music in the morning and students taking turns being the DJ,
Hmm.
it's a rotating contribution that they make. So it speaks to what Terry's desire to ensure that everyone has a contribution to make. This is a more formalized way of doing it. And maybe the way Terry does it, where it's just sort of, I just want you to be helpful. Everyone just needs to be helpful. Maybe that won't work online, but what will work online is more of a structured schedule or
Yeah.
so just thinking how we can be adapting.
Hmm.
But I love that idea. It's fun.
I was very proud. She named
Yeah.
me a very proud superintendent this morning. I said, "Girl, you're rocking it. That's what we want."
Yes. More
And
of that. More of that. It also
yes,
speaks to the relationship between the teacher and the students. So yeah,
right.
more of that.
Yeah, and teachers have to be afraid again to burn the box and take that risk because another thing we've learned from summer academy, because that was our trial and error, um, some students just will not engage when you come on to the camera and you're trying to be, good morning. They're just looking at you like, what are we doing?
Oh,
So for the first week, it's going to be awkward, but by week two, every student is engaged. And then making it part of your culture or your community is no longer awkward. We know we're going to do this now, so you might as well go ahead and participate. We're all going to look crazy together online, and luckily, no one will see it but us. So
yeah.
it's fine. And I just think, again, we just really have to be creative and think outside the box. Another teacher is using Twitter as a means to communicate by teaching safe, I forgot what it's called, digital citizenship, and using that as a teaching opportunity for students to communicate outside of their class.
Hmm.
And she's even putting things online, like using YouTube as a vice where they can go and watch her teach online and share it with their peers and help them, like tutoring. And I said, what a great way to use your resources. I have teachers who are doing literacy through rap using TikTok. We just really have to be creative, and it can be done. And incorporating, your kids in that. We have a lot of students who do music. They produce their own music. So I have teachers using the music from their students in their own songs and raps and turning that into a lesson. So again, we just have to be really creative. But can you imagine being a student to make a beat or something and your teacher's now using that in the lesson? It's like it warms your heart.
Right.
So
Very validating. Very
mhm.
valid. Well, I think it was John Dewey who said that teaching is both a science and an art.
Yes.
We're talking about these days having to be more creative. Maybe we're pushing the art piece of it a little bit more because the science is sort of the standard pedagogy, best practices,
Right.
the theory. And a lot of that, I guess that's what I'm getting at with Terry's strategies. A lot of that is going to be difficult or isn't going to work or just isn't going to apply now. So it's fun to be pushing the art side of that.
Hmm.
I know it's a good challenge for teachers. I guess
Oh
some
yeah.
will sink and some will swim, though. That's
And,
but
and that's the scary part.
yeah,
And to those who may think, we have flotation devices in the back to help you not drown. But
lovely. All
um,
the supports.
right, right.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean that is the thing for teachers who are really uncomfortable or uncertain to have the supports there for them.
oh yeah, and the resources ready and available. And then, in addition to that, I just think it's important to not forget, as you just said. Dr. Rosenberg made a very good point. You don't want to lose the education component. You got to remember that I do have to teach all of this material, and I want them to get it. I don't want to just teach it. I want them to get it. Um, but we just have to, and that's a wonderful way to put it. We have to merge education with arts and change the platform, I think, that we present education on. But you're still teaching, and you have to be in depth with it, but you just have to find a way to convey that depth. And I think that's going to be the colorful portion of that. So now the question is changing the spotlight over to parents. You know, how can parents be a part of this community? And I'm going to say that they really could, but as a parent, because you're a parent and an expert in my opinion, I know she's very humble, but I call her an expert because she has helped me a lot before I got to this administration field, you know, teaching,
Actually,
talking to her.
it wasn't me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It was Terry who helped you. I'm just the conduit.
Well, I'm glad you documented because
Yeah.
Terry transformed the way I taught. So, but as a parent, what's your take on that?
As parents, well, my kids are out of the school system now.
Hmm.
They're older. So I have to project back as a parent. Um, maybe I'll do it a different way. What I am hearing from my friends who have been parenting through the pandemic and
Hmm.
trying to educate as well is they are struggling terribly.
Mm.
And even my parent friends who are teachers themselves, everyone, they're both teachers and they're trying to deal with their kids at home and what their
Yeah.
kids need and working, of course.
Hmm.
So, but I think one of the things that maybe ties back with this issue of inclusion is that they felt very alone, out
Mm.
there on a limb almost. And
Yeah.
in fairness to the teachers, I mean, everyone pivoted so quickly that teachers just didn't have a chance to bring parents in. Now
Right.
we have a chance. So community has always been thought of, class community, as the teachers and the students. And
Hmm.
it's interesting that you bring this up to think of it as the teachers, the students, and the parents, so that it becomes this context in which everyone is supported, supportive, and helpful,
Yeah.
feeling like they belong, that they know what's going on, contributing. This
Right.
line, the pandemic uh, procedures and policies, what we've been living through, have blurred the line between home and school, maybe even erased it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, this idea of having a community now expanded to include parents is interesting. But I think
Hmm.
if you have classes where parents, where some of the kids are on site and some of the kids in the class are still learning from home, that the parents all need to be included in the
Right.
community. It can't just be the parents who are of students who are learning from home still. So I think it should be that. That's the only proviso I would put there. But yeah, I think it's fascinating. What do you think? Is it doable or?
Oh yeah, it's very doable. I think every parent, I totally agree, should be involved, both those virtual and face to face. Uh, I think the bigger challenge will be, in some cases, getting those parents caught up to speed as far as how we do things virtually, and what that looks and sounds like. Because not every parent is used to what we're doing right now. So maybe even providing sessions, one-on-one sessions, to like a how-to session with the parent would be good to entice them to get more involved and engaged in the process of the community. And I think that input, Dr. Rosenberg, would be gold for the teacher as well, to get a parent perspective from what they see going on in the classroom as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think adding them to the equation would do nothing but better the process of educating the whole child per se.
Right. So how would you do that? Obviously, we don't want parents teaching their kids academic work.
Right,
I mean, supporting is different than teaching. You don't want professional educators
right.
in charge of the academic work. So how do you see the roles being defined?
I think teachers should do exactly what you just said. They should encourage support, working hand in hand with parents in instruction. By that, I mean sharing lesson plans, walking them through, what we're learning. This is what we're doing. This is what, again, what it looks and sounds like. And I say that a lot because I think we look at things, but we don't really get the whole concept until we know what it sounds like, because that sound is what gives you the mechanics of the whole program. So showing them what it looks and sounds like and involving them again in the entire process would really help parents help the student. Some parents, need assistance in certain areas like math and science. So them seeing it and showing them how you're doing it will help them support the student. Again, it's kind of like tutoring. Tutors don't really teach; they just review and help bridge the gap between concepts. So if we could provide parents with that how-to and show them um, how to do that, then yeah, I think it would really help us a whole lot as far as bridging that achievement gap and the understanding gap as well.
Yeah. And do you think parents would be able to make the time for all of that, or?
I do. If we set realistic expectations, I would not dare ask a parent to engage in such things more than twice a week. Um, Maybe one day a week, not a Friday, don't punish them. But somewhere before Friday, in the evening time when there's time to maybe eat dinner, meet around 8 or so, if that's not too late, or 7, and kind of had a quick meeting, 30 minutes, no more than 45 tops, and just go through your plan for the week and then demonstrate, model it for them. And then those parents that have questions can contact you at another time. I wouldn't want to extend the meeting with too many questions, but do extend the invitation to email or schedule another Zoom meeting like this one-on-one where you can really show them again what it looks and sounds like. So.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of extra work, but sometimes I find that doing this extra bit, either up front or on a routine schedule, actually ends up saving time later on
Yeah,
because it makes the rest of the process more efficient,
right.
less stressful. We waste a lot of time, and students do too, managing their stress, anxiety. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but
Have we solved the world now? Have we solved the whole teaching in a pandemic?
absolutely not, Dr. Rosenberg. But I do
Oh
think we
no.
have a well-articulated approach on how we can combat this thing. And like you said, it does sound like a lot of work, but the good thing about it is we're creatures of habit. So the more we do it, the easier it will be. And before you know it, if we start in August, by Christmas, it's second nature. So at least we hope so.
Yes. And then
So
by Christmas, we have a vaccine, but nobody wants to go back to school anymore because online learning is so much fun.
it's so much fun because you're having TikTok sessions at the beginning of the class. So now who wants to go to live sessions? But our time is up. Dr. Rosenberg, thank you so
Oh,
much. We
thank
covered
you.
a lot of ground, and I feel enlightened. I'm sure our professors feel enlightened. Our parents are more equipped. But Dr. Rosenberg, before I let you go, do you have any words to the class of 2021? What would be your advice to our seniors?
Ooh, you're putting me on the spot.
I
Um,
know.
well, I was going to say be flexible, be adaptable, be okay with change. I once was in a class and the professor said, put your hand up if you believe in the phrase change for the sake of change. And
Mm,
nobody put their hand up. And by the end of the class, everyone put their hand up, and I was a complete convert because I think having the capacity to be
mhm.
adaptable and changing develops by changing. And it just seems to me that'll be a mindset that'll be required in a world that is completely unpredictable and changing by the
Yes.
minute. So I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Oh, yes. I think that is gold.